I'm going to quickly figure out an intro for this. Do you want to say hi?
Hello.
Hi. We just watched all of Breaking Bad season 1.
Yeah, yesterday we watched through the entire first season of AMC's Breaking Bad.
It was a first experience for me because I've never seen it.
I have watched the whole series at least once, all the way through.
The whole thing, all of it, right?
Yep.
And he has brought up a couple questions that he wanted to ask me for me to answer about the series.
Obviously, as of now, I'm gonna sort of speak my mind on this. As of now, as of this point in the series, there definitely isn't as much to talk about.
Uh-huh.
So this is probably gonna be a shorter one. I don't have very many, like, varying types of questions.
If we run out of questions, we can talk about specific scenes because I want to talk about. There are a few scenes that I want to talk about.
Yeah, definitely.
So don't think of
That's-
this as like a typical kind of video that's normally on my channel. This will be sort of like a podcast-ish thing.
Kinda, yeah.
So it might even be a longer kind of video. It might be an hour. It might be 10 minutes. Who knows?
As we go further, it might, they might be longer. I don't know how, hold on, let me look up the season lengths. I just looked up breaking, so that's gonna yield efficient things. I think season 1 is definitely the shortest season. With, what does it have, only 7 episodes?
I thought it was 10. It felt like 10.
I think it was only 7.
Okay.
Seasons 2 through 4 all have 13 episodes. Season 5 has 16. Season 5 is very, very good.
Sounds like we have a lot to get through in this thing here.
Yep.
Alright, well, as long as you've made sure that no one is going to barge into your room at a random time in the next hour or so, ask away. Ask your first question.
Okay. So, my first question for you is just general thoughts on the show. Like, what are your general thoughts on the show so far? Like, what's your sort of opinion? I don't know. Like, how... just general thoughts.
I think it's an interesting show idea. I mean, this teacher turned meth cook guy, right? Like, and it's the perfect thing for him to not if you're a chemistry teacher, don't cook meth. That's not a good idea. You get arrested. But like, he's got the perfect background for it, right?
Yeah.
He's a chemist, and a lot of people who go into meth probably know basic chemistry, but he's a chemistry teacher, right? Like, he has a PhD in chemistry. And I bet a lot of people that go into cooking meth cook meth because they can't get a PhD in anything, and they just want money, or are a meth addict. So him having a PhD in chemistry makes it so that he can cook meth effectively, like really well, because it's not an art. You don't just do this, and this. You're cooking something, and you have to know how to do that, and it's very dangerous because if you do it wrong, you can kill the people that are taking the meth, or you can just kill yourself in the lab while you're making it. And he has the perfect background as a teacher because he's as a high school teacher. He has like access to all the stuff that he needs to go get for it, which we see happen in the show, and that's the logical thing to happen. Now, I found no very large loopholes yet in the show.
Yeah,
with
where everything sort of just made sense.
Yeah, everything made sense. He's a chemistry teacher, and he's got cancer, and he wants to leave money for his family by the time he dies. So the best way to do that, he finds out, is by, well, not the best way, but again, not condoling making meth, but a good way that he finds out he can do that quickly is by cooking meth. So him being chemistry teacher makes that even more of a thing that he can do because he can figure out how to do it.
Right.
He knows how to do it.
Yeah.
And him being a teacher means he has access already to everything that he needs to get. And if I was writing the show, I would 100% make him go get all the stuff from his lab. And they check it out because they find out that the stuff is missing from the lab. So if I was the show writer, I would make sure that they investigated that. Like, if I wrote a show, I'd be writing my own problems into my story. Like,
That's how writing works.
Yeah, I know, but like,
God.
no. Like, I'd be writing something and I'd just be starting like, oh, these
Yeah.
characters are going to do this, this, and this, and I'm like,
I
oh
don't
wait,
know.
if it was real life, these other people over here would probably try and do something to figure out what they're doing, and now they're in a problem, and I need to write them out of this problem. It feels like that's what they
Right.
did, and they wrote
Mhm.
into the problem where, oh, the police have found out that all this stuff is missing, and it's from this specific place, and now Walter might be in trouble because he's the teacher there. You know, it makes sense.
Yeah.
What doesn't make sense is he's a 50-year-old guy having sex. That doesn't make sense. And he has a baby that's gonna be born. That doesn't make sense. But you
He
know,
just turned 50. Okay, it's allowed.
it's allowed because he's 50 now. His sperm was
He just
infertile as soon as he turned 50, not before. So it's fine, I guess. It's a little strange that it was like allowed to be a show because it like I guess it doesn't have a step-by-step process of cooking meth, but and I guess as someone who doesn't know how to cook meth, I don't have the slightest idea of how to cook meth, but someone who
Yeah.
knows how to cook meth will watch the show and be like, "Oh yeah, they're doing this, this, this and that." And that's probably not good. Because the chemist might realize, "Oh, they're doing this, this, this and that." And then cook meth, which is not a good thing.
Right.
But I guess it's a TV show and they're not actually cooking meth, so it's fine. But it's the same thing how like we played Entry Point on Roblox, and the first thing was like we were robbing a bank in a way that made sense how you would rob a bank, and I was a little worried like how is this game allowed on Roblox? That doesn't feel like it'd be
Right.
allowed on Roblox, teaching you to rob a bank. Like this doesn't
Right.
seem okay. Like are we allowed to play this? Am I gonna get banned? Of course it's fine. But that's kind of the feeling that I had. But you know, it's a show. You get used to it, and it was after like the first episode, I was like, okay, yeah, I guess.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so I'm gonna ask you now, like, your thoughts on the different characters in the show. Okay, so
Okay.
we're gonna start with. We're gonna keep this pretty easy, just plain and simple. What are your thoughts on the character Walter Hartwell White, who lives at 308 Negra Arroyo Lane, Albuquerque, New Mexico?
I love that this is the first character that you bring up because he's the main character, and it's funny because there's so many memes about him. I love that the first line of the TV show is, "My name is Walter Hartwell
Yeah,
White. I live on
that
308 Negra
comes back in
Arroyo
a big
Lane."
way.
Yeah, that comes back in.
You haven't seen that whole clip, and I'm glad because it's pretty spoily.
Yeah.
But
I love that like the
It's a good
meme
book.
of him saying, my name is Walter Hartwell White. I live on 308 Negra Arroyo Lane, Albuquerque, New Mexico." I love that became a meme, and then it's the first line of the TV show. That took me by surprise, because
yeah,
I knew it wasn't the same scene, because that scene is him sitting in a chair somewhere, and he's already gone through chemo. But
right.
I know the line, and it's funny that was the first. It was funny to me that that's the first line of the TV show. Is that I didn't expect that to happen.
Yeah.
We already talked a little bit about Walter when you asked about how I thought about the show.
Yeah.
He's a very interesting character. He's a teacher turned meth cook, right?
Right.
He got all the right backgrounds for it.
hmm
He's
And
a
he's
chemist.
He's like self-dependent, right? Like he
Yeah.
doesn't want to take, and really that's what makes the whole show, and it's frustrating to watch because it's like, dude, you just take the money, but
Yeah.
you know. Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, continue.
It's he's got all the right backgrounds. He's a chemist. He would know how to make meth even if he didn't like make meth. Like chemists just kind of would know how to do that. If they don't know exactly the process, they know. If they don't know the process to do it, they know what you need to do to sort of do it, right? Like you know
Right.
what you'd need to do it and what you'd need to mix to make it, but they wouldn't know, even if they didn't know how to do that. But that's like a quick internet Google probably has that information, how to cook meth in 10 simple steps.
And easy steps.
So you know, you can probably Google that
Yeah.
and figure it out. But and he's a teacher, which means he has access to all the equipment that he'd need. So it checks out there. And he's got chemotherapy. He doesn't have chemotherapy. He's got lung cancer, which I want to figure out why he has lung cancer. That's one of the big things that I want to do. Is I want to know why he has lung cancer, because that kind of came out of nowhere. I know people get cancer out of nowhere, but
Yeah, I don't think that's ever actually explained it, like why he has lung cancer. I think he just has it.
I feel like they made a big deal out of it in like a way that obviously it's like a more realistic show, so it's not like appropriate of me to be thinking about like this is how it works, but like for me I felt like he's not supposed to have lung cancer and someone like gave it to him, gave cancer to him somehow because he doesn't smoke, and I thought maybe like
The magic.
magic, or someone.
Yeah, there's like a flashback that is uncovered in like the middle of season 3. That's
Yeah,
like,
and
it's like, oh my God, Jesse, I remember the wizard. He smokes his own meth for the first time. He's like, I remember the wizard. He told me he was gonna give me lung cancer. Before, he's like, Mr. White, what are you talking about? You're scaring me.
Yeah.
No, but I don't think it's ever explained why. I think he just has lung cancer.
I think that Walter's just kind of a guy trying to do what he needs to do to protect his family.
Do you think he's right in what, like, the measures that he's taking?
I think
at least at this point.
at this point in the season, in the series, which would be the end of the end of the first season, I think he's doing the right thing to cook meth without anybody finding out, but cooking meth is never like the option. But for the sake of the story, he's doing the right-ish thing.
He's doing a good thing, but
Yeah.
it's illegal.
Yeah.
And it's harming other people because, like, Hugo, the janitor, is the first example of collateral damage caused by Walter White's
Is it?
Heisenberg
There's
escapades. Yeah.
the two people that literally both died.
What?
There's the two people that literally both died. Well, I guess they were involved though. They were directly involved. Yeah, Hugo, I guess, was the first collateral damage.
Yeah.
Overall, I
Alright.
think he's a pretty good-ish character. He's written well. He's doing what he needs to do in terms of the story. It's not the right thing, but he's probably going to figure
Yeah.
that out maybe soon, or he's just going to become I saw him go from not knowing what he's doing to like acting like a professional,
Yeah.
which was interesting to see that it happened so fast, and going through cancer and having a choice in choosing to take the chemo was
Yeah.
a big thing. Like now he's choosing to cook the meth now and do stuff. I don't understand why after he still agreed that like Elijah,
Who?
the guy, the billionaire,
Oh, Elliot. Yeah.
Elliot.
I don't know why he's rejecting him.
I don't know why
so-
he's not taking the money, even though he was like, yeah, okay, fine, we'll do this. And they're offering it still. I don't know why he's like, here, cash this out on Monday. It's my own drug money. Like, I don't know why he's doing that. He doesn't need to be doing that because they offered. I don't know why he's
Right.
lying and saying, like, that they're paying for it. Because what happens when they go ask, like, hey, can you give us a little extra money? The chemo needs to be
Yeah.
paid for. And like, why? Yeah, I thought you guys had it. I thought your insurance was covering it when it wasn't. And that seems like it might be a problem later. I don't understand why he's not doing that, though.
Yeah. One thing, I think that by this point, I think he's gone too far.
Yep.
I think if he had done the first time, right,
Mm-hmm.
and that situation, and then was like, okay, I'm never doing this again, and then never did it again, that is like redeemable. But the fact that he is willfully choosing to continue with this, it's for himself, right?
Yes.
What I picked up on with this, like with this season, is that he starts out trying for his family, and then he continues for himself, for the experience, and so that he can be the best. That's what he wants. He wants to be the best. And like, it's not as severe at this point, but I think that's definitely what's like causing him to continue to do it. And you know, he tells himself, you know, oh no, it's for my family. He's still telling himself that. So the way that he thinks is still around that. But I think that really what he wants at this point, deep down, is to be the best.
Deep down, maybe, but I still feel like
I mean, he's
doing
definitely
it
still
for
pure
his.
intentioned.
Yeah, I think he's still doing it for his family because he's trying to afford the chemo. But the fact
Yeah.
that he was offered a payment again twice, a full payment for it,
Yeah.
and rejected it twice, and instead went to go cook meth, definitely shows something different
I think
that's going
that's
on.
definitely like he is doing that for himself.
And I don't know how anyone can tell yourself in good, like, in
Conscience,
a good
yeah.
conscience that I turned down good money, good honest money, to make my own money through dishonest,
Illegal means,
stolen,
yeah.
illegal means. How can you do that? He's definitely really good at it, so
Yeah.
that's the thing. Because him paying for the chemotherapy is still him helping his family. Because
Yeah.
at this point, it's no longer... Because he was going to give up. He was
Yeah,
like,
he
I'm
was.
gonna die
That's
in
true.
like
Is that
5 years or
he
so.
did commit to the chemo.
Yeah, and then he committed to the chemo, but he committed to it for his family. And now he's paying for it with drug money for his family.
Yeah.
But he doesn't need to pay for it with drug money, which is the bad part.
Right.
He can just pay for it with the money from Elliot. So, you know, he's a good character, but he's kind of got his head in the wrong spot. I didn't like that he smoked half of the marijuana. It was a funny scene, but I don't know why he did that. I don't know why he did that.
You want to try it?
He tried it, and then he smoked it all.
Hmm.
I don't know why he did
Yeah.
that.
Okay, so now we're gonna move on to some other characters. These definitely will not be as in depth as Walter White.
Yeah.
At least by the first season. Next character we're gonna talk about is the one only JP, Jesse Pinkman.
Yeah.
There has not been nearly as much development of his character as there will be.
See, that
but
feels...
Trust me.
It feels interesting because it feels like there's more development with Jesse than there has been with Walter. For me, Jesse started out as the guy that he's supposed to be, right? He was the meth guy. He made the meth. He was the meth. He ate the meth. He's the drug guy, right?
He eats, sleeps, drinks meth.
Yep, he pees meth. He does everything, right? So he's the guy, right? And that's who he was. They did a really good job. But that's who he wanted him to be. That's who he was. And over time, he's become like, you like Jesse now. He's cool, right? Obviously, cooking meth is not cool, but Jesse as a person he's a cool. He's not a bad kid.
Yeah, he's not a bad person.
I said this while we were watching, but there's a point in the show where Jesse goes to get a job, like a real job, and it's nice to see, like, it made sense that it didn't have on his resume that he was good at sales because that would get him arrested. But it made sense that he would want to get a job in sales because he's really good at sales, right? He sold meth for like however many years he's been selling meth, right? And so he wanted to go and get a job in sales. And it was nice. He went to go get a job, and that was a nice, development of character. And I thought it was maybe going to get better from there for him. And then his friend outside just asked him for more meth. And then
Badger's my boy.
Yeah. And I don't think he ever gets that job.
Yeah.
But overall, before that point, I thought that he was going to be a completely different type of character. I thought he was going to be the meth junkie. The guy who's just always high and all over the place, and it's just, he wasn't though. I didn't expect him to be
as, sort of in-depth as he is.
Yeah, it's not like he's this meth junkie to just be thrown away, that's just the neighborhood junkie. He just makes meth and sells it and drinks it and does everything with it. He snorts it, whatever. That's just the meth guy. He's like an actual person. He's a human being. Like, he's a real person. And I didn't expect that. And the fact that he is Walter White's student and Walter White is helping him makes the connection between them even more
natural.
More natural, more interesting. It was very strange to see him not follow what Walter White was saying, but you get it. He's a kid and he thinks he knows best. But then we see that doesn't work out when he goes to buy a plastic tub, tries it out, doesn't fit, so he just doesn't buy anything. and then he tries to
Right.
melt the body in the tub, and then the porcelain tub breaks through, and the floor is gone, and there's blood everywhere, and they have to clean the whole thing. And
Right.
then I saw him later on completely listen to him when he has to go out and he has to buy all the stuff that he makes a list for. He's like, man, I ain't getting
Yeah,
this
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
But then Walter assures him that, you know, he can do it. And he believes in Walter. He believes Walter, and he goes and he does it without question. He gets almost everything. And it feels like he's trusted Walter more now that he's been doing stuff with him. And that might just be because he wants to keep making meth and wants to keep Walter happy. But even if it is, he's going to learn that Walter is right, and that he should start listening to Walter regardless of if he wants him to work for him or not. Because
Yeah.
the best way to do it is for him to just listen to Walter. Right? Walter knows
Right.
how to cook the meth. That's what he's doing.
Mhm.
And it was interesting, and it was a nice change. It was a quick change too, because it was like an episode after each other, or episode or two after each other where that happens.
Yeah.
And then I think the biggest change that happened was he went to go see his parents. You got to see his interaction with his little brother, and I wasn't paying attention super well during that scene, but I know his parents didn't like him in the house. And I'm pretty sure they kicked him out, and they didn't like him there, and I didn't understand why the little kid was smoking and buying meth.
It was weird.
Yeah, weed, not meth. I didn't understand why he was doing that, or how he was doing that, when he was
Yeah, I
doing
don't
that.
know.
I don't know how they fit that into the show, but his relation with his little brother, it was interesting because it's like he had a sensor. He turned on a sensor, and he wasn't who he normally was. He was a quote unquote normal human being, right?
Mhm.
So he went to see his little brother, and he was just kind of hanging out with him and having fun, and not like, you know, all centered around the meth that he's doing, right, and stuff like
Yeah.
that, right? And it wasn't
Right.
centered around that. He like was actually able to
Just
interact
having
with
like a
people.
conversation. Yeah.
And it was cool to see that.
And like his drawings and
yeah, it was cool to see his drawings and things, and it was really, really good character development, and I want to see more of
Yeah.
it. I want to see more of it, and that's one of the biggest reasons why I think Jesse has evolved more than Walter White in the first season. It feels like Jesse has had more character development, and it's a nice change. And personally, I want to see him. I know this would stop the show, but I want to see him get out of selling meth. I think a fun, interesting direction to take it would be Walter takes complete control, and Jesse gets out of meth, and he gets a job the right way, and he gets off of it. I think that would be a cool redemption arc for Jesse, but that's probably not going to happen.
All right. Again, on to some more lesser characters. Obviously, Walt and Jesse are going to be the two most developed characters because they're pretty much the two main characters.
Yep.
But you know, I've got a couple characters that are, I would say, a little bit less developed, but still just as important.
Mm-hmm.
So next we're gonna talk about Skylar White.
Yep. Skylar White. I have no idea what I think about her. There's not been a lot of stuff with her other than her just flat out crossing the line of being like a wife. And I get that she's meddling in her husband's affairs because he's important to her, but the way that she's been acting has not been like what I would expect from a couple that's been married for hopefully
Right.
30-ish years.
Right. I might say that like Skylar and Walter are they're like two parallels, right, of the same sort of mindset where they're like they want to do good for the family.
But they don't know how to do
But-
it in the right way.
Walter's ideology of doing things good for his family is morally incorrect, while Skylar's, at least at this point, that's the
The way that it should
good
be
way
done.
to go about it. Yeah, like genuine caring.
They're
like, you know what I
parallels
mean?
that pop off at the station.
Yeah.
And then come back.
Yeah, definitely not as much development with Skylar.
I feel like there was
As-
no development with Skylar.
Yeah, there wasn't change, but there's still development because, you know, as you introduce the characters and stuff, there hasn't
Once
been
you
change.
figure out who the character is, you look back at the first episode and she's the same person.
Right. Let's talk about Hank.
Hank?
Hank
I'm
Schrader.
excited for this.
I love Dean Norris. I love Hank Schrader. He's a good guy, but
Literally.
he's the bad guy.
Yep.
Which he's the first example of how this show sort of takes the traditional formatting and flips it on its head.
Yes.
Right.
We have a brother-in-law who is a cop.
Specifically of the Drug Enforcement Agency.
Yes.
So specifically in the field of felonious acts that Walter has chosen to
Felonious acts.
make his domain.
And it's not like he's just a cop and the cops are good guys, but they're bad guys in this. He's a cop, but he's his brother-in-law. So they're
Yeah.
friends. Like,
And it's
good
like
friends.
Yeah, and it's I guess he's not a bad guy. Like he's definitely a good guy, but it's like you still don't want him. You don't want him to know
Yes.
because then there's a problem. And you know,
Yeah.
obviously the fact that he's as close as he is to Walter White is already a problem. But you know,
Yeah.
as long as he doesn't find out.
As soon as he figures out that there was no forced entry, there was no break-in, as soon as he figures out no one else lost their key at all, he's gonna be directed towards Walter. Or one of the other
Right.
staff faculties whose alibis will check out. And then Walter's will not. And he will end
Yeah.
up probably being found out. I think Hank is a great character. I think he's hilarious. I
Personality
think
is
he's the comedy
literally me.
relief.
Yeah, he's definitely just like he's the funny guy, and it's like, you know, because it's real too. You know, that's how people are. Like, I know people who are like that. You know, I'm kind of one of those guys, not like to the extent that Hank is, but like I'm the funny man within a lot of my friend groups.
I think Walter, Jesse, Skylar, and Walter Jr. need to change. I don't think any of the other characters need to change, other than maybe
Yeah.
Marie, who is stealing.
So that's actually a really good transition, because next is Marie. So glad you picked up on the kleptomania. I was kind of talking about that though. I personally kind of forgot that was a thing, but it is a thing. She's a nurse or something, I think,
Mhm.
or a doctor. I don't remember.
You got any like specific questions for me about her?
No, not really.
Just like what she feels like as a character?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, she's not really super fleshed out.
I think she needs the smallest amount of change, but most of the characters in the show, other than Walter, Jesse, Skylar, and Walter Jr., just need to be developed more and solidified into the world more. Like,
Yeah.
learn more about them as a person, but they don't need to really change that much.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about Walter Jr. I definitely think at this point he's a very good character still.
Before we talk about
Um,
Walter Jr., can we talk about the midget on the motorcycle?
His character development, he's shown from the left and then shown from the right, and
Yeah.
then he drives away.
Hmm.
Then he
Very
waddled
good
away.
Very good character development. The midget on the yellow
Yeah.
motorcycle.
The little guy. But yeah, so let's talk about Walter Jr.
Yeah, Walter Jr. He's an interesting character. I like when he says, "Why don't you just f***ing die already?" I like that part. That's funny.
Maybe treatment isn't the way to go.
Then why don't you just f***ing die already?
I like the part where he calls his dad a
You're being... You're a
And you can see his relationship with with his father being like I feel like the way that Walter Jr. sees it is that like
He's mad.
yeah, I mean he's mad, but it's like his dad Walter White has to earn his respect, kind of.
Well,
Right,
all
like-
fathers have to earn their sons and daughters' respect. That's just how it works.
Right. Yeah. And so it's like he has expectations for his father, and he looks up more to Hank than to,
From
which
the
is
fact that
definitely
he-
interesting.
He calls Hank when he gets in trouble at the gas station instead of
And
his dad. If my dad or my uncle or my aunt was Hank, I would
Right.
totally call them instead of my actual dad. Unless my dad, in this case, is Hank. Right?
Right.
Because I might get better off with calling a cop who I know and is my family to do that, and he'll just be like, oh, okay, your dad's a cop, so we'll let you off with a warning. He'll deal with you however he wants to deal with you, right? I feel like that would
Right.
get me out better, so maybe Walter Jr. did that instead. Or,
Yeah. Maybe. I think definitely though it's because he at that point didn't respect, had little respect for his father because he was, just sort of acting like nothing was wrong.
it was interesting, though. I don't know why he would choose to go get beer, though. He didn't seem like the kind of kid that would strike me as doing that. I don't know if he just got in with the wrong friends.
He was just acting out
Yeah.
because he's going through the tough times.
If I learned that my dad or my mom had
Just drinking
cancer,
away the
I wouldn't
pain.
do that.
Well, that's you, right? People
Yeah.
are different.
I guess. Definitely wasn't the right thing to do.
Well, that's not what we're discussing. We're not discussing rights from wrong. Well, I mean, we kind of are. But
He's an interesting character. I hope to see more development from him. Now that Walter's gone through the chemo, I haven't seen much from Walter Jr. Now that he was just
Yeah.
sort of there in the beginning, and then he had cancer, and his son caught on to something was wrong, and they told everybody he had cancer, and then he got really mad, and then he did stuff, and now he's going through the chemo, and he's gone again. And he's just sort of there.
Right.
I don't want that to happen. I want to see more of Walter Jr. I want to see more things with him.
yeah. Okay, and then my last character that I have on this list here is I know we haven't had too much of exposure to him, but I think we should talk about Tuco Salamanca.
Booyah! Wow! this kicks like a mule with his balls wrapped in duct tape.
We definitely haven't had enough exposure to make this a long part.
Yeah,
to
definitely
this.
not as long as some other.
But he's an interesting character. I like that they introduced him. I'm excited to see where it goes with him, because now Walter and Jesse have an agreement with him, and Walter and Jesse are taking the biggest advantage of him, I think, ever. And for once, for me, it's weird because this show is showing me how money works, how like deals work with people. I make you something and I sell it to you for my price, right? And then they take it and they sell it for more so that they have money for themselves and to pay me, which is an
Right.
interesting thing. That's how business works, and I'm understanding that more than I already did before after watching a meth show.
Business. Who needs business school? Just watch Breaking Bad. Oh, God.
Exactly.
They're playing a big risk though. He's
First-
crazy.
He's
He's crazy.
definitely crazy.
I would still say that Tuco has the upper hand. They are like goldfish, right? Dancing around this shark.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I think they're going to think about extorting him for his money by making
don't think
more than
they're-
he's ordering.
I don't think they're extorting him.
Well, they made
That-
him double what he wanted, right?
Yeah, just to prove that they're good. But that's also very dangerous.
But I feel like if they continue to do that and give him more than what he asks for, he's going to get mad. Just because he can't pay it, though. But I'm sure that he'd be willing to give as much money as he needed in order to buy it if he had the money, just to even, like... Because he
Yeah.
takes some of it, too. He uses some of it. And it's the good stuff. But again, he'd have to sell it for double, if not triple, maybe even quadruple the price that he bought it for, which might not be
Right.
good for business, because the more something is, people might not pay for it. But meth is probably already pretty expensive. And most people that you sell it to know that it's expensive, but don't know the actual price of it. So it varies dealer to dealer, so...
Yeah, well, it has to do with the volume of it. So you pay like say
Hot takes.
$10. Yeah, they paid like $10 for a teenth, which is like some fraction of an ounce. It's like a very small amount, but it's worth a lot. It's worth like $10 for like a little bag.
I'd pay $10 for... Not actually... Okay, YouTube. I'd pay...
If somebody came up to me with a little bit of meth, I would. Give
If
them
I
$10.
was a meth addict, YouTube, if I was a meth addict, I'd pay $10. I'm not a
If.
meth addict. If I was a meth addict, I'm not a meth addict. If I was a meth addict, I think $10 is a deal for that tiny little bag of stuff. I'd price that at $10. I have one of those little bags.
That's
Actually,
some
this was a little
crackhead
small.
mentality.
This is a little smaller than the bag they used in the thing, but I have a little bag
Like an
here.
actual teenth bag.
I have a tiny little, like, 2-inch long bag here, maybe an inch and a half wide of stuff. And if they sold that to me, I'd maybe pay $6 for it, maybe $7. But the
Yeah.
bags that they have in the show, I'd pay $10 for that. It looks like it's worth $10, and I wouldn't pay any money for that unless I just bought it to get rid of it. Like, here, I'm taking all of your shit. Give it to
Taking
me.
out your
I'm
meth
gonna
to burn it,
burn it.
destroy it,
Like,
burn
no, you're
in a
not.
pipe. So, I will conclude this with a question that I will ask every one of these
Yep.
until we decide. I'll kind of have to explain this to you this time,
Yep.
but the question is, do you think Walter White has become Heisenberg? Over the course of the whole show,
Yeah.
Walter White he becomes his persona. So slowly over time, he will become less like Walter White and more like this drug lord persona. So like here you'll see parts of like his homely personality, you know, seeping into the meth business or whatever. But like at some point later down, you'll probably see like his, you know, personality as a meth dealer bleeding into his family life. That's that sort of thing. The way that I would put it is, so Walter White is the man who is like with his family and stuff, and then he's Heisenberg when he's like with Jesse and doing methods, making meth and stuff. That's like the split.
Yes.
But at this point, he's still Walter White.
Walter White has
who puts on
schizophrenia.
the facade. Yeah, it's like it's Walter White putting on the facade of Heisenberg, and it's like the switch is gonna be when it becomes Heisenberg putting on the facade of Walter White, and then the
Okay.
point where he becomes Heisenberg, and this is kind of like a meme. This is kind of like a joke. It's like, this moment Walter White became Heisenberg, but it's a genuinely interesting thing to think about because it's the point at which he is no longer Walter White. So he has this persona, right? It's his like pseudonym, right?
Yep.
It's like this fake name just so he can conceal his identity. It's like how Domingo is Crazy 8 and like
Yep.
Jesse is Captain Cook.
Oh.
It's just like this fake, like, you know, this guy, this facade. But there's a point in the show at which the facade that he puts on, he becomes that facade, and it's no longer a facade, right? Like, it's not his alter ego anymore, right? It's like saying, at what point does Bruce Wayne become Batman? So he's this guy, and then on the other side of the coin, he's this Heisenberg, this drug lord, right? And we'll see that fully develop, because I guess at this point he isn't really the drug lord that he will eventually become, but he's definitely created this persona, this like alter ego. And this question is sort of asking, has that happened yet? That change where the alter ego is no longer his alter ego, and that's just who he is. So has Walter White become Heisenberg, would you say, at this point in the show?
Since
Yeah.
I don't know what full-on Heisenberg looks like, I think he's the best version of Heisenberg right now because he can. He's got everything with the drugs in order. He's got it all under control, but he's also managing time with his family. So that is probably the best version of him that he can be. If he gets worse with his family but better with the meth over time, that's not a good thing. But if Heisenberg is like this big drug guy, then maybe
Right.
he's not Heisenberg.
And then, so you're saying that you believe that within the first season, Walter White has become Heisenberg.
You'd have to watch the whole season all the way through in order to get an actual answer for it, because there's a point where you understand who Heisenberg really is, right?
Yeah. And I mean, that's
Heisenberg
why-
might be this guy who can balance life with meth cooking very, very well, which is what Walter White is right now. But if the goal is to be the best meth cook ever, then he's not Heisenberg yet. And I think as the series goes on, you'll know who Heisenberg is and then be able to pinpoint change. But you're making it sound like Heisenberg is not a guy who is good with his family and the meth. So I'm going to say he's not Heisenberg yet. And now
You know
I
what I'm
guess
saying.
the way that all videos end with an outro that is based around me trying to make content and actually be successful on the platform. If you liked
Big
the
dick balls.
video, what?
What?
But we're gonna keep
And it's
doing them whether
different.
you like them or not.
somebody will like them.
Somebody will like them, hopefully. That'll be all for this episode of Breaking Bad review, I guess. That's not what this thing is going to be called, but that's the end of the review for the season 1 of Breaking Bad. Thank you for hosting this with me. Thank you
Yeah,
for
no
the
problem.
questions. I'm excited to watch more.
Hell yeah.
I'll see you guys in the next video, depending on what that is.
Oh yeah, I'll see you guys.
Bye-bye.